Hello Deer Park community, this is your Superintendent Jay Phillips, and this past Tuesday, November 17th at the regular Board of Education meeting, our Deer Park administrative team gave its second annual State of the Schools address to the Deer Park Board of Education. Obviously this year's State of the Schools looks a little different than last year's, as we didn't have a 2020 state school report card to go off of. However, there are still a lot of great things happening in Deer Park schools, and things look a little differently this year because of a national pandemic, but I think it's still important for all of you to know how we are still educating your kids and providing great opportunities during this crisis. It's also important to really pay attention in this State of the Schools to our district finances. We gave a report about where we stand financially as a district and where we need to go over the next year to remain solvent. So I think that's important for you to tune into. After watching the State of the Schools, if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to me or any of our administrative team. I will also be coming out to you over the next 6 to 8 months to really discuss more in depth what we are doing as a school, where we stand financially, and how we need to move forward in order to remain solvent. Again, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy.
All right, so thanks for having us and tuning in tonight. This is kind of an exciting time because we're talking about where we've been, where we're headed, and it gives us an opportunity to share it with all of you. So just as an overview, this is our report card from last year. So this is from the 18-19 school year. As Mr. Phillips just mentioned, we don't have one from the 19-20 school year to really go off of. However, just to remind us all of where we were last, we received a B in our overall for the district, and we were in the top 32% of districts across the state who received a B or higher for an overall district grade. So we have not forgotten where we were, and we're continuing to push forward. Even though we don't have a report card to go off of for this year, we are anticipating a report card for the 2021 school year to come out next year, and so we're continuing to push that. So we are looking at a new set of graduation requirements to roll out for the class of 2023 and beyond. So this year's seniors and next year's seniors actually kind of fall in this hybrid model where they can either go with these new requirements or they can fall on the old requirements. Starting with this year's sophomores, however, they fall under what are considered the permanent graduation requirements, which are very different from what we currently have. Essentially, what we have right now is you have to earn your credits and you have to earn 18 points on 7 end of course assessments. What we're looking at moving forward is you have to meet all 3 of those main bullet points. So you have to meet your course requirements of 21.5 credits. You have to demonstrate competency in Algebra 1 and English 10. So those will still be end of course assessments that students have to demonstrate competency in. If they're unable to do so, there are a few other options there: enlisting in the military, earn some CCP credit, or show career readiness, which I'm going to talk about on the next slide. And then finally, they have to demonstrate readiness by earning 2 graduation seals, one of which must be an Ohio seal. So Ohio is going to offer 9 seals, and we have developed, as a District 3, locally defined seals. They are listed, you probably can't read them from there because it's not that big, but on the right side here where it says at least one of the 2 must be Ohio designated. The ones that are local seals are community service, fine and performing arts, and student engagement. And so we've developed the language behind that. So students can either earn 2 Ohio or 1 Ohio and 1 local. And then the very bottom part there, if you see where it says final course grade and then skill level point value, that was just something that we used last year, that because we weren't able to give the end of course assessments, Ohio Department of Education came out and said any student that was registered for an end of course assessment, whether it was for the first time or a retake, you can take their grade in that equivalent class and give them points towards graduation, towards those 18 points. So that's just the conversion scale. That was a one-time thing. We're not able to do that moving forward, but we do have some students that's going to significantly help for this year's graduation. Okay, so if you remember back on the last slide, I mentioned if students weren't able to demonstrate competency in the algebra and English end of course assessments, they could enlist in the military, they could earn CCP credit, or career readiness. So this is something exciting that we started to work on that would show career readiness for a student and gives them another alternate way to graduate if they can't show that competency. So what we're looking at are industry recognized credentials, and these are recognized by the Ohio Department of Education. A student can earn an industry recognized credential by earning a 12-point credential through a pre-apprenticeship program. So because Mr. Phillips several years ago started the career academies that we currently have, this gives us a great pathway into pre-apprenticeship in our district. So these are the ones that we're currently exploring. We're looking at information technology through our UCIT courses that Mrs. Davison offers. We're looking at the health field through our sports medicine class and our partnership with Mercy Health. We're looking at manufacturing through our manufacturing course and our partnership with Monty Manufacturing. We're looking at business through project management, entrepreneurship classes, and our Project Management Institute partnership. And then finally, at the engineering pathway through Project Lead the Way that Mr. Smith offers at the junior senior high school. So through this, what happens is students complete coursework, and then they go off and do a pre-apprenticeship or an internship. And we're looking at potentially even that 301 course for manufacturing and for sports medicine whenever they do that internship, counting as their pre-apprenticeship. And then they could earn that 12-point credential, and they leave high school with the credential, and they have this pre-apprenticeship under their belt as well. And then they could go into an apprenticeship, a true apprenticeship after high school with one of these companies. To talk a little bit about Gifted, I did a presentation last year on this. So looking at our Gifted indicator on the report card, we're continuing to move in that direction, and I think we're moving in a very positive direction. We have to hit 3 different indicators in order to get the overall overarching Gifted indicator. Value added and performance index are simply just pulling out the Gifted subgroup from those. So your value added is how much growth did the Gifted subgroup population have from one year to the next. The performance index is looking at end of course assessments and how students performed on those based on the Gifted subgroup. Value added, we did hit 2 years ago. Performance index, we were pretty close. So I think that, depending on how we do on our projections, I think we definitely have a chance of hitting that. And then the inputs is just based on how many students you have identified versus how many you're serving. And the way that we're able to track now in our the paperwork that we're filling out for the acceleration plans, I think that we'll have no problem hitting that one as well. So if we hit all 3 of those, we get that Gifted indicator on the report card. Our teachers do go through some professional development so that all of our teachers are considered gifted service providers in the classroom, which helps us with that inputs indicator there. And then we've also hired somebody through Hamilton County Educational Service Center. Her name is Casey Darrow, and she is helping us at Amity with math enrichment and gifted. And so she is meeting with students, pulling them out in small groups. She was meeting with them remotely as well whenever we were doing remote learning through Zoom and Google. So she is helping to provide some of that additional math gifted enrichment at Amity Elementary. And then my last slide is Deer Park Discovery. So this is a program that we started this year. It's housed here in this building. Just some pictures of the rock stars of the week. The main focus down here at Deer Park Discovery is students who are either deficient on credits or students who weren't finding success at the traditional junior senior high school. And so the focus on credits, we currently have 19 students enrolled in the program. Some are in the morning, some are in the afternoon because we have the 2 different sessions. And students have earned so far, it's actually 52 half credits earned so far this year. So we're sitting at 26 full credits already this year that students in that program have earned. They do it by half credits, which is why it's broken down that way. And we anticipate 8 graduates this year from the program, 3 of which will actually be early graduates. Some of them, that is their goal, is to graduate early. And so we believe that 3 of them will. We have the career-based intervention class that you approved a couple board meetings ago. And we currently have 5 students either currently earning credit or going through the interview process to get a job in order to earn credit. Students take a lot of ownership of their own learning. They're working at their own pace, and then they have the ability to earn Fun Fridays where they get to do really fun stuff on Fridays if they're all caught up on all of their work, and that's turned out to be a really good incentive for a lot of those students. And then just a little bit on the impact that this program has had on the junior senior high school. I put some numbers down here, and I'll talk about them very briefly. Office referrals are down 84% at the junior senior high school. In-school suspension is down 62%. Out-of-school suspension down 82%. And you might say, well, of course, we're remote at the junior senior high school right now. However, the students here are not remote, and we're not making up the difference in what has gone down at the junior senior high school here. In this building, we've had 2 one-day suspensions and 2 emergency removals all year, which I think is really outstanding for this group of students. So they're definitely finding success, and I think they're having a great time doing it, and they've built really good relationship with the teacher.
Okay, I have the honor of talking about the achievements occurring at Amity Elementary School. And just like any school to start the year, our biggest achievement is opening up a school in a pandemic. You know, and I know we talked about 2 weeks into the school year with the board and wanted to check in on how things were going, and I highlighted teamwork. And I said this wasn't possible without teamwork, and that teamwork being the teamwork of our parents, our students in being prepared, and our teachers, you know, coming together, putting together the plan, and then executing it so that we can have school. And one thing that I'm particularly proud of is this teamwork continues to drive us. It drives us every single day. We have to have teamwork to get this done. This is teachers collaborating. This is students rising to the challenge. These are the parents helping us out in every way they can from working at home. And so teamwork truly highlights this. And it goes beyond just our teachers and our parents. It's those people behind the scenes as well. It's our cafeteria workers that are putting every single piece of food in individual containers. They're making meals for our students when they're working from the hybrid from home. It's that extra work. It's our custodial crews adding daily disinfecting to their normal job of classrooms and restrooms. It's our instructional aides adding those extra tasks. In the picture here, we're greeting our students. We're giving them those that hand sanitizer to start the day. It's our nurse, you know, handing out bottles of water, handing out PPE, you know, making those extra phone calls, checking kids to make sure that they're well. You know, it truly takes a team. It's our office staff coming together, filling those holes on a daily basis. It truly is what drives us every single day. You know, once we get them into the building, our next task is teaching and learning. That's what we're there for. This picture here, I really like this picture because I see teaching and learning in action. This is Mrs. Fowler in her gym class. She taught the students, you know, how to play the game in front of you. She's actually participating on the left. She hits the ball to the student. She has taught them. That student is going to hit the ball back. That's learning. He's giving her feedback of what he learned. Was he listening? She can give critiques as to what happened. And it's kind of a back and forth. This is one of the loops of teaching and learning. It's probably one of the hardest things that we've been challenged with is how do we continue this loop of teaching, learning, feedback with the schedule that we're currently running. Our teachers are working very hard to give that feedback, to help critique, to make our students better. Our students are working hard at home with their parents to work so that they can give that work back to the teachers. We're doing this in the classroom, and some of it looks very similar to what we've done in the past. We're trying to engage students in those fun activities that they like to do while they're learning. Sometimes it's us as teachers and as educators leading from the front, but it's also us giving support. As you see in there in the middle, Mrs. Serber giving support for the student, looking over his shoulder, giving that critique, giving that help that they need to keep moving and progressing in the curriculum. Teaching and learning isn't just what's happening in the classroom, it's also what we're doing virtually. Mr. Eilendorf, I was walking through his room, or past his room, he was meeting with a student. It's hard to see, but he's got a math problem up on his Google Meet. He's showing the student the problem. They're talking through it. Even though they can't be with each other, they're still progressing along with one another. And then we have our virtual teachers. Mrs. Lemon and Mrs. Upton, they're working hard with our virtual students to keep them connected. They're going above and beyond just the Accelerate program, providing Schoology lessons. This was one of the fun lessons they did. Mrs. Lemon was reading them a bedtime story, and so the kids partook in the story. They drew a picture, you know, trying to create that sense of community with our virtual learners to keep them connected to Amity. We have traditions. Our school was established in 1826. Tradition is very big for us, and we're trying to figure out how can we keep some of those cool things that are going on intact in a safe manner. The far left, that young man, a kindergartner, he dressed up for Halloween. He's wearing, it's kind of hard to see, he's wearing a pirate costume. We took time on Halloween, we had our kids dress up. They played some games at the end of the day. Tried to remember that these are kids, these are big days for them. We still need to have a little bit of fun, and how can we do that in a safe manner? Guy in the middle, he is meeting virtually with a student that is in Amity Elementary. We have our Amity families, which we combine older grades and younger grades. And he was meeting with a 5th grader in Mrs. Macbeth's room, and they were going in there having conversation. That leadership, that mentorship, we're still striving to keep that even though we can't get them together in person. And on the far right, we have a student, she's so proud of her CAT card from our PBIS program, keeping that going, recognizing the nice things that our students are doing. Our most recent tradition, which you saw, our Veterans Day program, obviously takes a lot of creativity. Our teachers are driving that creativity. How do we keep these programs around? Mrs. McNally, obviously challenged, we can't sing, took on that challenge, said, well, we'll do American Sign Language, to the music that we would normally play. So this is them practicing that. It's, Mrs. Walsh saying, hey, look, these are the normal things that we do in this ceremony. Let's continue to do them. Let's tape them. Mr. Snyder saying, hey, I'll help you put them together. So we can push that out so our parents feel it, our students feel it, and our community feels it. And lastly, technology. We went one-to-one overnight. When I say one-to-one, that's Chromebooks to students. That doesn't happen very often. That's a normal several-year process. We were in the spring, we were having conversations. We had Chromebooks that were close to end of life. We said, hey, we got to hold on to those. Our tech guy did a great job of speeding them up, getting them to where they need to be so we could pass them out on day one. And this is accelerated good teaching. When I say that, our teachers are using Schoology, they've embraced it. They're doing that hard work and learning this program. I see them using it not only outside the classroom, but in the classroom. They're using it to access articles. Kids know how to get in there, make copies of notes. They're able to take tests. They're using it, so it's kind of a continual cycle. They're doing this and they're also using other programs. Using Screencastify to tape lessons. They're using Edulastic to take quizzes within Schoology, as well as Edpuzzle to kind of look at the different videos that are out there. So we're doing great work at Amity Elementary. We've got a lot to be proud of in the midst of what's going on. So thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Great job. So, for junior, senior high school, as you can see, for us, it's all starting with culture, and I think Josh would agree the same thing. He talked about teamwork, we talk about our H3 culture, and you guys probably heard me talk about H3 before. Help others, help your school, and help yourself. Last year, this was created by teachers a couple years ago as kind of our overarching emphasis for our school. How do we always do these things? Last year, we took a little bit of a deeper dive into that. We created what they call a culture playbook. A lot of other schools around the state and even around the country do the same kind of thing. We wanted to dig in and dive a little bit deeper and define what that culture meant for us. And from there, we use our H3 culture playbook, and we use the district mission and vision and core values, and that really serves as a driving force for how we approach our decision-making processes. A couple things that we did this year that just kind of show that. One is we looked at restructuring our building leadership team. In speaking about culture, we know that culture can't just be something that administrators say has to happen. We can't just say, hey, this is what we're doing. We know that the most influential people probably in our building are going to be the teachers. They're the ones working with their teams and their departments. So we restructured our building leadership team to help develop that. And now it's not just a feeling of me saying something on the announcements or Mindy sending out an email. It's our teachers really spreading that message, not just amongst each other, but also with the students. So it has that domino effect. In our BLT, they're reinforcing that H3 culture in ways that we can't do that. A couple other things. One, we wanted to mention some teacher recognitions. Kelsey Weinbar and Allie Malkowski are both junior high math teachers. They both work with a relatively new curriculum called Illustrative Mathematics. It's a different approach that has students really diving in and thinking mathematically, and they've both been recognized for their work on that. Kelsey won the Southwest Ohio Council Teachers of Mathematics Middle School Outstanding Teaching Award. She won that a couple weeks ago. She was recognized for that, so that's huge. And Allie has presented at a couple different presentations. One for the Southwest Ohio math teachers. She presented in the spring, and then this past fall she presented again for the entire state of Ohio. They had their virtual conference, and she presented again there. Sarah Godwin also was published recently in brilliantflashfiction.com for her story on Afternoon Tea. I think I emailed Sarah and said, I like the story, but I think I'm going to have to go back and reread it like I'm in English class again. Moving on. Flexibility has been the name of the game, as you guys know. As I think back to a year ago, certainly we all know we wouldn't have seen anything coming the way that it did. So I can't brag enough about how much our teachers have really dug in to the philosophy that we sent out last year, students first and content second. We've seen the flexibility and the adjustment that our teachers have taken on, and that they've really modeled for our teachers throughout this. It's been tough as we talk about Zoom meetings and we talk about grading philosophies and we talk about assignment. It's been tough not to lose the forest for the trees, but I think our teachers again have done a consistently good job of taking a step back and saying what's most important here. We've been through 3 models already this school year, and they continue to be flexible. And again, attribute some of that and a lot of that to even our building leadership team that we talked about on the last slide. We did some professional development and education this year. As you guys know, we pushed back the start of the school year for these things. Things like using tools called Pear Deck or Jamboard. And we use Schoology already for our students, but our teachers have really learned to dig in a lot more. We've also done a little bit of professional development around equity. We know that in these times, students are still coming from so many different places and have so many different resources. So we've dug in just a little bit into a book called We Got This. Again, just to look at different perspectives and how to help our students as much as possible. And the last thing on there, we talked a little bit about this a little bit last year, but our teachers last year did some things called passion projects. And without getting too detailed, basically we wanted to give our teachers some opportunity to really explore some things that were going to help them become better teachers, and then in turn help our students become better learners. A few different things have come out of that. One thing that has come out of it has been looking more into what standards-based grading is, and really having our teachers explore a lot more, what do their grades mean? And while that is something that we've been working on the last couple of years, just exposing and throwing out the idea for people to consider, I think it's really come to light recently as teachers consider, well, if students are on remote learning, it's really tough to take completion points and make that a significant part of the grade. And teachers are starting to see some of the benefits of really examining what grades mean. Again, looking at ways such as standards-based grading to increase equity and fairness for our students. And then last one is our student activities. I know Jake's going to talk a little bit about some of these things as well, but I just look back at last year and think of the input that our students had and how significant they were in helping us work through things like our modified graduation ceremony. That was something that we thought we didn't know if we could pull off anything like that, and through work with our students and work with Mr. Phillips and obviously your help too, we were able to pull off something that was really pretty cool. Virtual prom court. You can see our prom court up there. Again, heart-crushing for our students to lose their prom, but through our students' help, we found ways to do things like vote for a prom king and prom queen. And then our fall activities. Mr. Huster's here, certainly credit to him and his work with the coaches to get us through that challenging season. And you can see our band down there as well. Band performed multiple times, including their one competition at Mason High School. And I talked about this a little bit more already. Our students' input has been huge. Whether it's been working from student council last year, for graduation or prom, or Mr. Phillips has a student advisory council as well, and those groups are really helping us kind of get a good feel and good perspective of how things are happening from their perspective. And then the last thing that I'd mentioned to Mr. Phillips has a Chick-fil-A Leadership Academy. So again, trying not just to develop the students academically, but also as leaders. So, thank you.
So I'm tasked with talking about serving all learners, which is our student services department, which has always been connected to community service, but it's even more connected now in the pandemic that we're in. So we're servicing all of these folks: special education, English language services, Title I, 504s, transportation, homeless, foster students, and then resources for all those in need, regardless of what type of student they are. And we've been putting at the bottom kind of, we don't discriminate based on, it's just who needs it and how can we help you. So student services has evolved into that. So here's our student support by the numbers. You can see on the far is our special education. We have about 213 special education students. About 10 of those are outplaced outside of the district. And then 14 are scholarship students who take either autism or John Peterson funds. And then on this slide you can see we have a total of about 1,189 students. And then tells you our foster placed, our homeless, our English learners, who gets title services K through 6, and then our 504 accommodations. So a small percentage of all of our student body, but we're servicing all of them with their needs. We hire those folks listed at the bottom: 15 intervention specialists, 2 speech and language pathologists that we hire ourselves, 35 educational aides, title teachers, an English language tutor, and then we contract services through Hamilton County for preschool, and then for physical therapy, our mobility, our vision, our hearing, those kinds of things. And then really community service has just become huge right now, that we know it takes a village for our kids, not just our kids, our parents, our educators, everybody right now needs support. So we've had a huge increase in what we're doing and how we have to all work together. We have tons of community partners. This is just a small sampling of what we've done with community partners. The Day of Giving on Channel 5 happened twice. We serviced over 50 families with that. Kenwood Baptist has done their Whiz Kids tutoring even in the pandemic. They have it outside with giant heaters. They're giving a meal to go to those families. They're supporting some families with laundry services. And then they did a whole summer program remotely. We have donations from the needs. They do a lot for the clothing room. They have a food pantry over at Kenwood Baptist. They're giving evening hours to folks in our zip code to support them. We had over 150 backpacks from both Community Lighthouse Church and then Blue Ash Community Church. And then the public library is such a great support to us. Free internet, homework supports, internet access, all those kinds of things. And all together, we could really come into that One Deer Park, which Jay has really led us to have that community connection with the clergy in our community. One of our biggest community things is the clothing room. Maybe?
Next one.
That's okay. The clothing closet, we're at an all-time high for donations. Goodwill shut down for a while and wouldn't take donations, which has kind of been to our benefit. So the clothing room is packed. It's full of great things. It's open daily, and we've had evening hours for folks to do it. A huge thanks to Sandy Mills. That is her passion. That is her heart. That is what she's done. But Sandy's going to step away in January. She's still going to be here. She's still going to help. But she really has some other things that she wants to put her passion toward. So I'm really excited that 2 retired staff folks, Cindy Holman and Karen Spreen, have said they're willing to. They're like, we have some experience in this. They work at the Valley Vineyard when they used to allow volunteers, and they thought they could help out. And then Becky Mace is a huge supporter of the clothing room, and she's going to continue to do that. So that's a great resource for our families, on top of all the donations folks give us for groceries and all kinds of things.
All right, well, the first thing I want to talk about here is something that has kind of been in the works for over 2 years when looking at the communications of our district. This really is the face of our district from a virtual perspective, which is pretty important these days. And so this came about. It was something that was part of a communications audit. You may remember that I talked about it last year. But some important pieces of this is that, first and foremost, it saves the district about $6,000 a year by something that we did, which was interconnecting all of our communication processes. So this company that we use called SchoolPoint actually includes our app, our all-call system, and our website as well. And the money saving is great for sure, but it also kind of creates an ease of interconnectivity between all of our communication services. It also allows us to do things like I have the ability to make a call to the entire district in case of emergency straight from my cell phone. So from a safety and security perspective, extremely strong as well. So we're excited about how the new app looks. We're always looking for feedback. We're always looking to continue to make it better. We've continued to make changes even since making the adjustment to it, but really excited about where we're headed and kind of that face of the district. All right, so I've said this before. I think I said it last year, and I know it's corny, but the reality is I really consider myself the storyteller of Deer Park. Among all the other things that I do, that's the piece that I see as really important, or maybe the most important. So the challenge this year was, how do we tell our district's story in the midst of a global pandemic? It turns out it's not easy, but it has created an opportunity for us to get creative in the way that we do things. And I'm going to talk about some of those things, and really hopefully has created some long-lasting memories for our families and for Deer Park schools. The first thing, as Shane mentioned, that I was going to talk about is some of those end-of-year ceremonies. Basically, overnight, we were told, you can't have these in person anymore. Figure it out. And so what we were able to do is really share out some of these videos that are such important traditions in Deer Park, from graduation to senior awards to academic signing day, even allow us to connect with some of our families at Amity through teacher messages, things that we weren't prepared for, but allowed us to create strong relationships that we really didn't know were available. So speaking of those strong relationships, one thing that came out of this that was pretty exciting for us was a partnership with Wickshire Senior Living. So as all of this was happening in March, Wickshire reached out to me and said they wanted to find a way to support us. And the way that we kind of came up with that was using this senior supporting seniors idea. And Wickshire paid for signs for every one of our seniors, which was a really cool thing that they did. They posted them up inside of their office, or it's inside of their building for a while, and then outside the front lawn of the junior senior high school. So that was the big public thing that they did. But another thing they also did was offer breakfast to all of our teachers throughout, basically once a week throughout the pandemic, in those March and April months, where teachers were able to drive through, pick up a breakfast to go, and move on. And so there are a ton of opportunities that we think we have with Wickshire in the future. And this was a great kind of finding the good out of the bad situation. So we're excited to see what that partnership holds moving forward. The next thing that this pandemic forced our hand on was, again, overnight. We're forced to find a way to allow our fans to see our games when they can't come to them. With a ton of help, and let me tell you, a ton of hours from Becca Wolf and Greg Huster. I want to say Becca just was incredible in this. We created the Deer Park Sports Network. And you can see kind of those numbers. The one number that I didn't put up there, but I want to say out loud, is 0. We did this at basically 0 cost to the district. It was all with equipment that we already had, with people that were already working for us. And you look...
Duct tape and bubble gum.
Duct tape and bubble gum, that's exactly right. We improved as we went, and it kind of culminated with our first ever full live broadcast of our playoff football game, which was really cool and just a great experience, I think. So we're excited about the potential that the Deer Park Sports Network has moving forward. Pandemic or no pandemic, this is something that's going to stick around for a while, I think. Another piece of this, and kind of like the sporting events, but almost a little bit more consequential because of sunshine laws and different things that exist. We had to find a way to get information out to our public in short order. It started a little rough. I don't know if you remember the speaker in the back corner of the room that we pointed the microphone at so that the public could hear us. But really, these speakers that are now in this building, the microphone that I'm holding, all came about as a part of finding a way to create a virtual experience for our community. And that's something, again, that these hold a ton of potential looking forward in the future. The last thing that I am going to talk about is Deer Park traditions. Someone once told me in Deer Park, if you do something once, you better be prepared to do it for the rest of your life. And it's true, in Deer Park, traditions are the most important things that we have. And we had to find ways to do things a little bit different. And so one of them was the Amity Senior Walk. We actually virtually walked through the entire building while teachers sent messages to the senior students, which was super cool. And something that they aren't typically getting. You know, they may not get those messages from their former teachers. The first day slideshow is something that, again, came about as a kind of one-off that now has become a pretty big tradition here since I've been here. And we were able to do that just as we always have. And then Josh mentioned this, but I think it deserves mentioning again. Cheryl Walsh and the second grade team and Taylor McNally put in so much time and so much work, and the kids were incredible in that Veterans Day video. One of, if not the most proud thing I've done since I've been here at Deer Park. It's something that, we know how important veterans are to Deer Park, and got a really meaningful piece out of that. So one last thing that I have. So I know there's been a lot of conversation about what's Parker's going to look like in 2021. So Sarah Godwin is here with me today. We started talking about what Parker's 2021 was going to look like, and she reached out to me and she came up with what I think is the coolest idea that we've got. I'm just going to hand the mic to her and let her kind of talk about it, and then we've got something special for you.
Last year was so heartbreaking, and the way we had to end Parker's, and so I spent the past probably almost 9 months thinking about what we're doing, how we're doing this year, and not knowing what's happening down the road, not knowing where we're going to be at the end of April. I didn't want to put us in a position again where we put in all this work and then something happens to it. So how are we going to make this work for our community? How are we going to make it work for our students to put on the best possible show we can and have it be memorable and impactful and just as great as every other show we've always done? And so, as you may be aware, this year is the 75th anniversary. Being very clear on that, 75th anniversary of Parker's. And so, to highlight that, to celebrate that, I reached out to Jake, and this year we're going to create a documentary celebrating the history of Parker's. So this documentary will incorporate student performances from our current students, sort of celebrating past performances and what Parker's is now. We'll make sure they're all very safe and done under COVID rules and all of that to make sure student safety is first and foremost. We're going to reach out to alumni and get interviews with them, talk about their experiences. We're going to reach out to former directors, try and interview them, get their experiences, and really just tell the story of what Parker's is and what it means to this community. So Jake, in his amazingness, was able in, a day?
24 hours roughly.
To create a little trailer for what Parker's will be for you this year. So I'm going to turn it over to him so you can have a little preview of what's coming in store for us in a few months. Parker's captures everything that is wonderful about this community. Every year you come, you see something bigger and better than the year before. Parker's is so much about the students. We've got great kids who put literally their blood, sweat, and tears into a show. I'll see students that I haven't seen in years, and they come up to me and they're like, oh, this is the thing that I missed most about being in school, is being on that stage. And if I could come back and do it one more time, I would give anything to do that. It's that adrenaline of just pushing through and working together, and it really creates this lovely community of people that have experienced this thing together. it creates this sort of I survived Parker's kind of mentality that's fun and exciting and hard, but ultimately worth every second. It's amazing to me that a community the size of Deer Park has been able to put on a show of this quality, this caliber for 75 years. For me, my big takeaway from Parker's is that if you put faith in the students, they will deliver every single time in a way that just knocks your socks off every night. Make it happen, make it
Yeah, so
special.
we are really excited about this. It's going to be a 4-month labor of love to put this thing together, and we're looking forward to what we've got. Again, with an opportunity, not a challenge. So.
What a great team we have. I'm Jim Stahl, Director of Business. I'd like to update the board and the community on our facility improvements throughout the year and on into the next few years. As you know, at the direction of Jay Phillips, the superintendent, we impaneled a committee last September of community members, board members, faculty members, staff, to identify needs and wants with regards to our facilities throughout the district. 11 areas were identified. We began to make some of those improvements, and then the pandemic hit, and because there was some uncertainty wrapped around that, especially with cost with regards to PPE and keeping our staff and students safe, that we put some of them on hold. But as Mr. Snyder takes us through some of these pictures, we want to update you on some of the improvements. The first one, well, are we going to start with the bleachers or are we going to start with the turf field? I guess we're going to start with the bleachers. Yeah, so the visiting side bleachers were on the list of 11 things, but it got moved up in priority because we received a sort of a concerning evaluation of them in, I think, August, Greg, was it? With the help of John Dorich from GOP Engineering, he gave us a blueprint to refurbish the bleachers. If we were going to replace them, it would have been about $95,000. He said that they were structurally sound, they just needed some work. He gave us that blueprint, and for $14,000, we have the result. That was the before picture. Jay, do we have that's the after picture. And he feels confident that we can get 7 to 10 more good years out of it, if not longer, if we take care of it. The next slide is our Crawford soundboard. This used to be in the middle, or two tables used to be in the middle of Crawford, and we designed this, put it behind the wall as you walk down, so you really can't even see it as you walk into the Crawford Auditorium, but it contains state-of-the-art electronics and sound. I'm not the tech guy. Jake could probably tell, or Sarah could probably tell you all the capabilities of it, but it was a great addition to Crawford. I think next are our new buses. We bought 3 new buses to keep our kids and staff safe. There was a significant discount. We received a grant from Ohio, the state of Ohio, to purchase 3 of them at a 25% discount on each one. So we almost got the 3rd one for free. So that was a really good thing for us. In homes here, we did some renovations throughout the building. Dave Conover should get a big kudo. We took the plan that SHP and HGC did when they renovated Amity. Lights, paint, flooring, and HVAC. And instead of having either one of them oversee the process. Dave took that project on all by himself. In this room, those are the before pictures, and those are the after pictures. So
How much money did you save?
boy, it was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars if you would have got the architect and the subcontractor involved. Yeah, he saved us a considerable amount. And the next improvement we made, or will make, this summer, we went out for bid because the new roof over the gymnasium was #1 or #2 on the list. We went out for bid, and the bids were fairly astronomical, and we were getting conflicting reports. Some of the roofers would say you need to tear it off. Others roofers would say, boy, I think you can re-roof it. We weren't sure, so we hired VSWC architects out of Mason. They came down. They did some core drilling. They enlisted the help of Jerry Stoker, the Hamilton County and Deer Park engineer. They came to the conclusion in our favor that we could re-roof it instead of tearing it off, which cut the cost in about a third. So we went from about $400,000. Hopefully, when the bids go out, it'll be in the $150,000, $175,000 range because of taking that extra step. And they will oversee the project as well. So that'll be a great addition. Up at the high school, we had some damaged concrete, which we thought was a trip hazard outside of the entrance to the gymnasium. So Shelton Paving redid all that today, as a matter of fact. So that's why we don't have pictures of it up there. Did want to talk about the turf project. We finally paid it off completely. There were no tax dollars used in that, and moving forward now, through the Mercy Health agreement, turf agreement, $26,500 will go into the fund to replace that probably in 8 or 9 years. It usually has a 12 to 14 year lifespan, so that'll be a great addition when we get to that point. And I think that's all I got.
Okay, and I guess first of all, thank you to my administrator so far for presenting tonight. I thought you've done a great job and have given us a lot of good information. Again, we didn't have a report card to steer us this year, but I think there's still a lot of good things happening here in Deer Park, and so appreciate their hard work. Jeff and I are going to talk a little bit about Deer Park finance and where we are at financially right now, and kind of our history over the last 7-8 years. As most of you know, and I'm just doing this for our community that may be tuning into this, but Jeff Lewis is our current treasurer, and he's been on the job now 4 weeks as actual treasurer, a month as our treasurer. So Jeff and I are going to talk about the finance history together. But I'm going to walk you back a little bit and talk about the history before we get to where we are currently. First of all, going back to November of 2013, and I'm taking us back to 2013 because one, that was a big year for us, but two, that was my first year in Deer Park. So that's where I have my knowledge and history of Deer Park finances from. The Deer Park community in November of 2013 passed a 7.9 mil combined operating and permanent improvement levy. 6.9 mils was for the operating expenses and 1 mil was for permanent improvement. And at that time, we made a promise to our community that it would last 5 years. We made that promise over and over again. Mr. Langman was a superintendent at the time. I spent many nights in the homes of our Deer Park residents and also at the Howard Building and in the career academies. I actually wasn't at the career academy at the time, at the high school, just talking about our finances, what this operating levy would mean, and telling our community and giving that promise that we would make it last at least 5 years. And as I look at this slide, this was actually a slide from 2014, post-levy, just right after the levy. As you can see at the bottom, 2013 was the red bar. That's where we were at as a cash reserve here in Deer Park. And the forecast then had us, those 5 green bars were the 5 consecutive years where we were in the green, and had us projecting most likely in 2019 having to go back to the voters, the community, and talk about how we're going to continue what we have going. And we're sitting here in 2020, and obviously we haven't done that yet. So we kept that promise and more, and I want to talk a little bit about what we've done since then. So since 2013, we've improved our overall district progress grade on our Ohio School Report Card from an F in 2013 to an A in 2019. I thought that was very important and also really impressive. You know, I talk with the board a lot about the measures on the report card and our progress. Value added is one of those big indicators because it shows how much we're growing our students. In 2013, when I sat in a lot of those meetings, we were talking to the community about money, and more than on one occasion, the comment came up, we know the schools have a need, but we're really disappointed in the report card. That F is concerning. And so we made a promise not only to extend and be fiscally conservative, but also to improve our academics. And I think we've done that. And we've done that in a big way. Some other things that we've done, we've added full-time kindergarten at no additional cost to Deer Park families, which there aren't many full-time kindergarten programs, and the ones that are, most of them charge. We do not. We've added a full-time Deer Park preschool classroom, and that is in combination with our partnership with Hamilton County offering Head Start here in the district, which we still do. We added Deer Park Career Academies. Again, Dr. Orso had talked about the Career Academies earlier in the presentation and some of those great things that have come out of the Career Academies. We increased security at both Amity Elementary and the Deer Park Junior Senior High School. That was one of the things our community really talked about as, you know, the rash of school violence had happened through, you know, between 2013 and now. You know, we heard that loud and clear, and that's what we provided to our families, our community, and our students, and our staff. We've added the Deer Park Discovery Program. Again, a lot of kids who are struggling in the traditional high school. This gives them an opportunity, and a lot of them are having successes that they've never had before. So once again, a program that just is benefiting our kids tremendously. We partnered with the Children's Home, district-wide, to add mental health therapists at both Amity and the Junior Senior High School. And we added our H3 Academy in partnership with the Children's Home at Deer Park Junior Senior High School. And just so you know, the Children's Home provides the mental health services, but we also added that H3 Academy to bring some of our students who were outplaced outside of the district prior to this. We brought them back home so that they could go to school in Deer Park, in their home school. And so we're providing them instruction, but also that therapy that is needed to be able to keep them here. So that was a big accomplishment for us. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about the forecast. This is our executive summary, and Jeff, if you just want to talk a little bit about what we're looking at here and what we see. Jeff talked a little bit earlier about the forecast, and we're going to go into it in a little bit more detail. So this is the executive summary.
This is the basically the 5-year forecast broken down. It's showing our cash beginning balance. There is our beginning cash balance. Our revenue, the next line down, it remains pretty flat, as you can see. Then you can see our expenditures, next number down in the red, and then it gives you a revenue surplus or deficit. We are currently in a deficit spending, and then at the very bottom it gives us our ending cash balance.
A couple of things I want to highlight here at the top. And this is for our board and for our community that are watching. When it says fiscal year, that's the 2021 school year. So fiscal year goes from July 1 to June 30th. And when they say fiscal year 21, that's 2021. Fiscal year 22 is 21-22. It's 21-22. Fiscal year 23 is 22-23. So there's going to be a couple times where I talk about calendar years and fiscal years. I just want to make sure that that's clear. And as Jeff talked about, our revenue pretty much remains flat, and I think it's worth noting that the past 2 years, the state of Ohio has flatlined our revenue, so that's why you see very little increase, but our expenditures are still going up. You know, one, inflation, but two, some of the great programs that we talked about, they cost district money. There are promises we made to increase early literacy, increase security, do those types of things, career opportunities, but they do cost the district money, so our expenses are still going up. Revenue's been pretty flatline, which then dictates that revenue surplus or deficit. We call that our deficit spend. Fiscal year 21, which we're in right now, we're projecting the deficit spend about $917,000, and that only compounds through the life of the forecast.
In reality, the life of the forecast is done from when we chose to do
So Mrs. Huster, what Mrs. Huster said is the life of the forecast is done, and I think what you're referring to is 2013. We always keep a 5-year forecast. 2013, we forecasted out to 2018, that would be solvent, okay? We've made it beyond that, and we've done it in a pretty big way. And one thing I want to highlight, you know, some people might look at this forecast and say, wow, your beginning balance and your ending cash balance in fiscal year 21, you're going to end with $2.3 or $10.3 million. In fiscal year 22, you end with 8.75. Fiscal year 23, you end with 6.7. That is a pretty good cash balance, and it is necessary right now because of our deficit spend. We are eating away at that, and that is the nature of school funding in Ohio. Okay, it's problematic for the state of Ohio. It's not specific to Deer Park, but it's every school district in the state of Ohio. Once you hit a certain plateau, your revenues become smaller than your expenditures, and that money goes pretty quickly. And so that's why we have that kind of vicious cycle. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. This just is another way to highlight that cash balance along with revenue and expenditures. The black line is our revenue, or the black bar is our revenue, and the gray line is our expenditures. As you can see, the discrepancy between those two bars gets greater and greater as we move on through the end of this projected forecast, which is fiscal year 2025. If we were to do nothing at this point, our cash balance at the end of fiscal year 2025 would be $1.1 million. We wouldn't have enough money to function the following year, okay, especially with our deficit spend. I want to go through these next couple slides quickly because it's just a different way to look at it. Again, the blue line is our revenue, the orange line is our expenditures, and you can see right about FY20 where those lines cross. Again, just another way to look at it. Like I said, it might be a little overkill, but I want to show you just different ways to see it. This also shows our revenue and then our deficit spend. And this is our cash balance. You can see the bell curve. We hit a plateau about 2020, and then our expenditures exceeded our revenue. So the one thing everybody wants to talk about, okay, well, what does that mean for us as a district? We see that the money's going to run out. What does that mean for our levy, okay, for an operating levy? This is based on November numbers, and I'm showing you this because this is what is forecasted. This is what is estimated at this time. This could change from our May forecast. It could also change with different decisions that we make here in the district. But levy millage needs estimator for 21, and this is levy year. This is what I was talking about before. I was talking fiscal years before. This is calendar year. So in 2021, because you don't collect until the following calendar year, if you would go for a levy here in Deer Park, if we would go for a levy and choose to do that in November, May, August, November, whenever, of 2021, what we're estimating right now is a low of 7.5 and a high of 8.73. And what that means is that a low range millage guarantees you your solvent for 3 years. The high range guarantees your solvent for 5 years. Okay? We've done 5 years in the past, and we've made that last, this time around, we're 7 going on 8 years. Okay? If you wait, this is the point I want to get at. I was talking about our cash balance and how quickly it's being eaten away. If you wait until 2022, you can see what that does to the millage. If you wait until calendar year 2023, it just gets worse without doing anything inside the district. Okay? So, as another topic of conversation, 1 mill in Deer Park generates approximately $266,225 right now. Sometimes that also is confusing to our community members who really aren't into school finance. They think they equate 1 mill to being $1 million. That's not what that means. 1 mill in Deer Park generates approximately $266,000. So I think it's always important to look at comparative districts. We did that last year in our presentation. And I want to do that this year and really come at it more from a financial way. But you have to bear with me until I get to that financial way. I put us up top. The other 10 districts that are similar to Deer Park. And I do this because I don't use just districts in our league, in the CHL, because we're very different. We're very different from Wyoming. We're very different from Madeira. We're very different from Marymount. We're very different from Indian Hill. So what I do, the Ohio Department of Education actually has a tool that you can use to identify districts that are most like you across the state. And the categories that they use are enrollment, population living in an urban area, population of your density per square mile, your median gross income, the percent of economically disadvantaged in your district, percent of adults with a college degree, and your percent of racial minority enrollment. Using all those metrics, we have they identified 10 schools. Wickliffe, Maui City, Finneytown, Reading, Coventry, Sheffield, Lake City, Brooklyn City, North Olmsted, Fairview Park City, and Norwood. Obviously, if we're familiar with Reading and Finneytown and Norwood, and Reading and Finneytown makes sense, they're right next to us as well. Okay, I want to look at some of the data real quick. Our overall report card grade, this is once again from 2019. You will only see 2 Bs on that list of 11 schools. Okay, Deer Park and Maumee City. The rest are Cs and Ds. Our overall progress grade, you only see 3 As on that list of the 11 schools. Deer Park is one of them. The rest are Ds, Bs, Cs, and Fs. Our overall graduation rate, again, there's only 4 As on the list of 11 schools. Deer Park is one of those. Our overall gap closing grade, you only see 2 As. Once again, Deer Park is one of those. So that brings me to this point, okay? And as you can see here, this is Deer Park. I know this is hard to read. This was the best I could get out of this. But this is Deer Park. And this line here is your average performance index, okay? This line here is your average pupil spend, how much money you spend per pupil. Okay, the average pupil spend of these 11 schools is $12,648. Deer Park is below the average spend and well above the average performance index, which tells you how well your kids are doing on the report card on your end of course assessment. So we're doing a lot more with a lot less. So I think it's important to highlight that. You know, we've been very, and I attribute it to the board and our administrative team and our teachers for being very fiscally conservative since 2013. We promised 5 years. We're sitting now at 7 going on 8 years that we've made that levy last. And our academics haven't suffered. Not only have they not suffered, but they've shot way up. So I think that's, again, that's a tribute to the board, that's a tribute to our teachers and our administrators and our students for doing a great job. This is just another way to look at it. Again, our per pupil expenditures. This is actually updated to 2020. But you'll see Deer Park City Schools, of those 11, well below the average per pupil spend, and even below the median per pupil spend. So we actually, what I like to say is last year we were 2 years in a row, and we just got our 3rd Auditor of the State award. So I know we're going to update that because I think that's important. Again, that shows our fiscal conservativeness, and also what good stewards we are of the taxpayer's dollar. We don't make mistakes. You know, we've had a young administrative team, both from the superintendent all the way to the treasurer, and have worked really hard to make sure that we're not making those mistakes. And I think that's been rewarded by the Auditor of the State award. So that's kind of our story now, financially. And I know we took a lot of time on finances, more than we usually do. But we are in a state right now with Deer Park Schools that we're going to have to make some decisions. And when I say we, our community is going to have to make some decisions, because we have a lot of great programming right now, Our academics are doing very well, but we're also at a crossroads. We can't continue to do what we've been doing and remain solvent. So we're going to come to the community beginning the new year after January, and I'm going to have many conversations with our community members, our parents, our families, our business owners about the position Deer Park Schools is in financially and what opportunities or what options they actually have. You know, do we have to go to the ballot? No. But would something have to change within Deer Park Schools as far as programming? Yes. So it's going to be our community's choice. They're going to guide us, they're going to lead us, and we're going to do what they tell us to do. But I think tonight was an important night to be able to get that word out and get that message out and kind of kick that off.